In the sacristy before Mass, I was speaking with Father Ralph, my MC, priest secretary, and I mentioned to him that in preparing for this homily today and in reflecting on the passage from the Gospel which Deacon just proclaimed, there's a verse in there that always seems to cause me a little bit of trouble. I don't completely understand it. And I continue to reflect upon it and to pray about it, hoping to come to a greater understanding. And it's actually the final verse of the gospel passage today. It says, "Without parables he did not speak to them, but to his own disciples he explained everything in private." Did you hear that? Without parables he did not speak to them, but to his own disciples he explained everything in private. And I've often wondered why he makes that distinction between the way that he spoke, the way Jesus spoke to his disciples, to his followers, as opposed to, say, the crowds who gathered to see him and to listen to him. Because he makes a definite distinction in terms of how much he shares with the crowds versus how much he shares with his disciples. I think perhaps one of the reasons for that is because Jesus called his disciples to follow him. We heard last Sunday in the Gospel how he called the brothers Peter and Andrew, James and John, who were in their boats mending their nets. And when they received that invitation to come and follow him, they immediately left their boats. James and John left their father to follow the Lord. There was no hesitancy. There was no, "Can I get back to you in a few days? I need to think about this." It was an immediate decision that they made to follow the Lord. There was something about the encounter that they had with Jesus that caused them to have faith, to believe in him, such that they would leave their daily living, their daily life, their work, their livelihood, to follow the Lord. In a certain sense, they had already said yes to Jesus, yes to be a disciple, yes to be a follower of his. They already had some level, some degree of faith in him. Whereas perhaps the crowds, those who came, we don't know why, maybe just out of curiosity, they heard about this Jesus of Nazareth and what he was doing, what he was saying, so they came to see him, maybe to listen to him. But they didn't necessarily have that level of faith, that level of belief, that level of trust in him yet. So he spoke to them in a different way than he spoke to his disciples. I don't know if you have a better explanation of why he makes that distinction, but that's the best I could come up with. So I just offer that to you today. We are called, each of us, through our baptism, to be disciples of Jesus Christ. To be disciples of Jesus Christ. And I was thinking, what does that word mean? Because we automatically assume, and we usually would say, well, to be a disciple means to be a follower. And if you said that, you would be correct. A disciple is a follower. Somebody who comes to know the master or the teacher, gets to learn his teachings and follows him. But my brothers and sisters, discipleship is more than that. If that's all we do is follow Jesus, we're not fulfilling our call of discipleship and being disciples. And I think this comes out very clearly in the teaching of the church in the Catechism, which speaks about discipleship. The Catechism in paragraph 1816 says, "The disciple of Christ must not only keep the faith and live on it, but also profess it, confidently bear witness to it, and spread it. Did you get all that? It's not just a question of having faith in Jesus and in following him. The disciple of Christ must not only keep the faith and live on it, but also profess it, confidently bear witness to it, and spread it. This is what we're called to do in the fullness of being disciples, and what we're called to do through our diocesan vision of courageously living the faith, courageously living the gospel. If you remember, the mission of courageously living the gospel is this, just as a refresher. We, the Catholic Diocese of St. Petersburg, are a joyful community of disciples. There's that word. Proclaiming the good news and inviting all people to encounter the love and mercy of Jesus Christ. There's key words in there that correspond and correlate directly to what it means to be a disciple, to be a follower and a disciple of Jesus Christ, to proclaim the good news, to invite others, to invite all people, to do what? To encounter the love and mercy of Jesus Christ, to have that same encounter which has led us in our lives to follow the Lord and to strive to be the disciples that he has called and created us to be. It's an ongoing process, a process of conversion, a process of transformation, which takes a lifetime. It happened with the first disciples who followed the Lord. It was a gradual process that they had to go through. Yes, there was something there from that initial encounter that led them to follow him, to believe in him. But of course, the mystery of who he was and his life would unfold throughout their lives, ultimately to the point where they shed their own blood. They made their own profession of faith in him, not with words, but with their life through martyrdom. Discipleship needs to be transformational, and it's a gradual process. Again, I refer to the teaching of our church in the Catechism, paragraph 562. Christ's disciples are to conform themselves to him until he is formed in them. In other words, our call, this process of growing in discipleship, is each day, hopefully, coming more and more to be transformed by Jesus Christ, such that he is formed in us, that we become more Christ-like in our lives. That's the call to discipleship. That's what it means to be a disciple. To believe in the Lord, yes. To profess him, yes. But to be constantly transformed by him so that we become more and more like him each day. I thank you for being here today, for being a part of this discipleship day. It is my hope and my prayer today that you will leave here renewed in your own commitment to be that disciple that God has created and called each of us to be. Amen.